Hi everyone. Today we're going to start off with your day one tutorial on your reading comprehension. So the story that we're going to be looking at today is going to be The Day at the Zoo. So go ahead and get that out. And you'll also need your highlighter. You'll also need your colored pencils and a pencil. So that way we can go ahead and get started. So go ahead and get your supplies. And I'm going to share my screen with you. And you're just going to follow along and do what you see me do here on the screen. Okie dokie. So when we do reading comprehension, the first thing we always want to do is we always want to go ahead and start off with making annotations. What are annotations? They're just notes and things that are going to help us really connect the story to those questions that we're going to be doing next. Okie dokie. So, the first thing we want to start with is recognizing the title. The title is A Day at the Zoo. So, let's go ahead and let's underline that. So, if you do get a question like, what is the title of the story? You know that it's A Day at the Zoo, right? So, we know that when we're talking about the zoo, we already get an idea of what this story is somewhat going to be about. We know it's probably going to be about animals or somebody going to the zoo or something that may have happened at the zoo or something like that, right? So now we have sort of an idea of what we're about to read and get into. But before we start reading, we first have to label our paragraphs. Paragraphs is basically an author's complete thought, right? Paragraphs consist of like 4 or 5 sentences, and they can have more. And after that, they move on to the next thought. And sometimes you'll see them use transition words like next, after, and then, and things like that. Okay. So we're going to start off with labeling our paragraphs. So this will be paragraph one. Okay, how do I know? Because I'll see there's a space in between right here. All right. So this is paragraph two. This is paragraph three. This is paragraph four. Uh-oh. This right here is paragraph five. So you can do this with your colored pencils, by the way. Try not to only use your highlighter when we want to go in and make annotations, and we're going to highlight the sentences with our highlighter, all right? The next one is paragraph seven, and then we're going to be here with paragraph eight, okay? So we have a total of 8 paragraphs in our story. So when we this will be helpful for us because when we go into the questions, we know that, oh, I can reference back to paragraph seven. Or like if they ask you like, oh, what took place in paragraph seven, instead of like trying to count your paragraphs, you've already had them labeled, right? The goal of this too is to make sure that this is as simple as we can get it. Okay. Because we don't want to go have to constantly keep rereading the story. We don't want to have to constantly keep going back and counting our paragraphs. We want everything to be set up right. So when it's time to answer those questions, it will be quick and easy for us. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and let's go to the question page. My numbers are probably going to stay up here, which is fine when I move, like I said. So I'm going to erase those and then I'll rewrite those when we go back. So before you read the story, I highly recommend you should definitely do this. Not recommend, but you should do this. Is you should totally read the questions first because that will help you connect what you are reading already, and then you'll be like, oh, that was the answer to that question. Oh yeah, I remember reading that question, that was there. So that is why we can help what's going to help us make those connections. So if we read number one, who went to the zoo in the story? All right, so we're going to see that our options are Emma and Jake only, Emma, Jake and their parents, Emma and her friend Lily, just Emma and her parents. What was the first animal Emma and Jake saw at the zoo? So now I gotta think about that as I'm reading. Oh, this is the first animal they saw. Was it the lions, giraffes, elephants, or penguins? So we'll be thinking about that. Geezer, we're just gonna keep this in the back of our mind. And I'm only gonna do 1 through 6 with you today. And then you're gonna do 7 through 10, I think, by yourself. All right. All right. So number three, why did giraffes have long necks? All right. So we have to look out for that as we're reading. All right. How did the elephant play with the water? What do lions live in? And why are lions called the kings of the jungle? So as we are reading the story, we're going to keep these questions in mind. Okie dokie. All right. Now we're going to go back. There we go. All right. And I am going to get my draw tool and relabel 6, 7, and 8. All right. I will read the story. As I am reading the story, you will follow along with your finger and you will read in your mind as well. Okay? Make sure you're following along with me. Title, A Day at the Zoo. One sunny Saturday morning, Emma and her little brother Jake were so excited. They were going to the zoo with their parents. Emma had been to the zoo before, but this was Jake's first time. They both loved animals and couldn't wait to see all the different creatures. As soon as they entered the zoo, the first thing they saw was a group of tall giraffes. They were eating leaves from the tallest trees. Emma said, "Look, Jake, giraffes are so tall. Did you know they have long necks that help them reach the leaves high up in the trees?" Jake smiled and nodded, but he was more excited to see the elephants. They walked to the elephant area next. There, a huge elephant with big floppy ears was playing with water. The elephant used its trunk to spray water all over its body and even sprayed some water toward the crowd. Emmett and Jake laughed as they got a little wet, but they didn't mind because it was a hot day. Elephants are so cool, said Jake. They are the largest land animals and they have a long trunk to help them grab food and water. After that, they visited the lions. The lions were napping under a shady tree, but when they woke up, they roared loudly. Emma said lions are called the kings of the jungle because they are strong and fierce. They live in groups called prides. Jake was a little scared of the loud roar, but he was also fascinated. Next, they went to the birdhouse. There were so many beautiful birds. Some had bright, wet red feathers, while others were yellow, green, or blue. Jake was amazed by the parrots. Look at the parrots, he said. They can talk. I want one as a pet. Emma laughed and said, parrots can mimic human speech, but they are wild animals, so it's best to let them live in their natural habitat. By lunchtime, Emmett and Jake were hungry. They went to the zoo's picnic area and they ate their sandwiches. They talked about the animals they had seen and what their favorite parts of the day were. My favorite was the giraffes, Emma said. They were so tall and graceful. What about you, Jake? Jake thought for a moment and then said, I like the elephants. They were so big and fun to watch with their trunks. After lunch, they visited the penguins. The penguins were waddling around on the ice, sliding and swimming in the water. Penguins can't fly, said Emma, but they are great swimmers. They have special wings called flippers that help them move quickly in the water. Jake loved watching the penguins slide on the ice. I want to be a penguin, he said. As the day ended, Emma and Jake were tired, but they were happy. They had seen so many animals, learned new things, and had a lot of fun. This was the best day ever, Emma said. I can't wait to come back to the zoo. All right, so now we're done reading our story. Now it's time to dive into our questions. All right, so remember that first question. Let's see. Our first question says here, who went to the zoo in the story? So as we're reading our questions, we're also going to be using a technique called slash that trash. All right. So what we're going to do first, though, is we're going to go back to the story, find the answer, highlight the answer in the story, and then we're going to come back, slash the trash, and find what answer matches with it. All right. So who went to the zoo in this story? Was it Emma and Jake only? Was it Emma, Jake, and their parents? Was it Emma and her friend Lily, or just Emma and her parents? So you may be able to shout this answer right off the bat and circle it, and that's great, but you also need to go back in the story and find your proof. So even if you know this answer, we are still going to go back to the story, and we have to find our proof on who went to the zoo. So now this is when we want to take out our handy dandy highlighters. All right, now it's time to highlight. So much fun. All right, so One sunny Saturday morning. So also too, before we get started, we have to remember where we read this at, right? So if they're telling us who is going to the zoo, remember we have a beginning, middle, and ending to a story. So where did we see this? We saw that in the beginning of the story. So I will start with paragraph one because I know that it had to take place in the beginning of the story. So one sunny Saturday morning, Emma and her little brother Jake were so excited. They were going to the zoo with their parents. So let's highlight this. Emma and her little brother Jake were so excited, right? They were going to the zoo with their parents. So now we know that it's Emma, Jake, and the parents who are going to the zoo. So now when I go back to my questions on the next page, I'm going to slash the trash with the ones that don't make sense, that we didn't read. Emma and Jake only. Well, no, it couldn't have been Emma and Jake only, right? Because we saw that it was also her what? Her parents. So let's slash that trash. Mm-mm-mm. Emma, Jake, and their parents. Ooh, that sounds right, right? All right, so we're just going to put a check there. Emma and her friend Lily. Did they talk about Lily in the story? No. Just Emma and her parents? No, because they also mentioned Jake. So now we have our right answer, right? So now we can go and we can circle it. All right. Now you could use your red color pencil to slash the trash and your green one to circle the correct answers. Or you could just use your pencil. Whatever, whatever floats your boots. Okay. But definitely use your highlighter to highlight that answer back in the story though. You gotta use that. Like I said, even if you know it, you need to find your proof. A good reader finds their proof. All right. If you're gonna think about being a detective, you're finding that answer. What does a good detective have? They have proof to prove their findings, right? So that's how we're gonna be. All right. The next question says, what was the first animal Emma and Jake saw at the zoo? Okay. So we have to think about it. What was the first animal they saw? Was it the lions? Was it the giraffes? Was it the elephants or penguins? Again, if we're talking like that about that first animal, we're still probably fairly at the beginning of the story, right? So if that's the case, I know that in paragraph one, they explained that they were just going to the zoo and that they were and who was going, right? But now I remember reading that in paragraph two, that's where they are at the zoo. Okay. So I'm going to take out my handy dandy highlighter and I'm going to find that first animal they saw at the zoo. All right. So you can also skim, and skimming is basically like just going through and seeing if we can find a keyword. Oh, I did. I found the word first. Okay. And so we found the word first. So the first thing they saw was a group of tall giraffes. So let's highlight that. The first thing they saw was a group of tall giraffes. All right. So remember, these are the things that should be highlighted on your paper. All right. So we see that the first animal they saw were a group of giraffes. We can stop right there. We don't need to read any further. That's our answer. That's what we highlighted. So now it's time for us to go back to the story. Okay? So we're going back to the story. And now what do we need to do? We need to slash that trash. All right. So you can use your red color pencil to help you do that. All right. So let's look at this one. What was the first animal Emma and Jake saw at the zoo? Did we read about them seeing the lions? Nah. The giraffes? That sounds right. The elephants? Mm-mm. We didn't say that. The penguins? Nope. Slash that trash. All right, now I'm going to take out my green because guess what my answer is? They saw the giraffes when they went to the zoo. All right, they saw those giraffes first. Okie dokie. We skimmed through the story. We found the key word. The key word was first. First thing they saw. That's what we found that sentence. So I knew I needed to stop there to find that answer. All right. Now, the next answer is, why do giraffes have long necks? or question, sorry. The next question is, why do giraffes have long necks? All right. So now we're going to go back to our story. I'm just erasing it so that way it doesn't follow us to the next page. All right. So we know that when we talked about giraffes, when we read about giraffes, we read about it in paragraph 2. So am I going to go back to paragraph 1 and read that? No. Am I going to go to paragraph 3? No. 4, 5? No. I know that when she was talking about giraffes and was talking about giraffes, we were talking about it in paragraph 2. So let's read it and see why giraffes have long necks. All right. Emma said, "Look, Jake, giraffes are so tall. Did you know they have long necks to help them reach leaves high up in the tree?" Oh, there's my answer. Did you know they have long necks to help them reach the leaves high up in the trees? So now it's time for us to go back, and now we got to do what? We got to slash that trash. So we're on question number 3. Okie dokie. And let me get my red so we can slash the trash. To help them reach the leaves high up in the trees. Ooh, wow. A sounds right, right? Because isn't that what they talked about in our story? That sounds like the evidence we found in the story. But let's make sure that we're correct. They look taller than other animals. Nope, we didn't read that. To help them swim better? No. To see the animals below them? No. Slash that trash, right? Now, the story may have mentioned them being taller than other animals, but it did not say that's why their necks were long. All right. So now we got to circle our answer, and our answer for this one will be A. Okie dokie. All right. Now we got to move on to the next one. So let's go ahead. And it says, how did the elephant play with the water? Did it A, it drank a lot of water? Did it B, it used its trunk to spray water on itself in the crowd? C, it splashed the water with its legs? Or D, it threw the water to the other animals? So let's go back to our story, right? And what we're going to do, like I said, we got to take out our handy dandy highlighters and we have to find that proof. All right. So we know that paragraph 2 talked about the giraffe, so we know it's not going to be in there anymore. So now we got to move down, right? When I'm skimming, I see this keyword elephant right here in paragraph 3. So that's where I'm going to stop and that's where I'm going to read. All right. So let's see. They're huge, so I'm skimming. Yeah, no, no, no. Oh, playing with water. All right, we're getting close. The elephant used its trunk to spray water all over its body and even sprayed some water towards the crowd. Now that sounds right, right? That is our answer. Okie dokie. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this, go here, and now it's time for us to start slashing that trash. All right. So we're here. I'm taking out my handy dandy red colored pencil. I'm coming here and I'm coming to number 4. A, it drank a lot of water. No, it didn't say that. It says it uses its trunk to do that. But in the story, we want to know, how did the elephant play with the water? That's not necessarily how it played with the water. All right. It used its truck to spray water on itself in the crowd. Ooh, that sounds right. So I'm going to use my green color pencil and give that a check. That sounds like the proof we found in the story. It splashed the water with its legs. They didn't talk about that. It threw water at the other animals. No, they didn't mention that. So our answer once again is B. So I am going to circle the answer B. All right, I'm gonna do 2 more with you, and then you're on your own, and you're gonna let your parents check it. Parents, make sure you are looking for these annotations as they're doing it. This is very important in helping them read and make those connections and understanding the story. Okie dokie. What do lions live in? So now that's our next question. Let's go ahead and dive into it and go to back to our story to find our proof on what lions live in. All right. So we know that paragraph 3 talks mainly about elephants, so I know I don't need to stay there anymore with answering this question. Now, sometimes these questions aren't going to be in chronological order. That means they're not going to go paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Sometimes they may ask you a question that starts at paragraph 5, find your answer in paragraph 5, and then you have to go back to paragraph 1 and find your next answer, okay? So that's why it's important when you're reading, you're making these connections and trying to remember where you've read this information at. So that way you're not doing too much and going back. All right. So, but for this one, this question here, it is in chronological order. That means it's going step by step, paragraph by paragraph. So let's go to paragraph number 5. I mean, number 4. After they visited the lion, oh, lions. Isn't that what that question asks us? They asked us about the lions. So let me take out my handy dandy highlighter. I'm going to highlight the word lions, all right? Because I know this is where I need to be. So the lions were napping under a shady tree, but when they woke up, they roared loudly. Emma said lions are called the kings of the jungle because they're strong and fierce. They live in groups called prides. This is exactly what we needed. That's the answer. So let's go back, click on our mouse, and we're going to go back over here. We're going to go to number 5, and it says, what do lions live in? Okie dokie. So when we see this, we're going to do this, and we're going to slash that trash. So take out our red colored pencils and our green one. Do they live in packs? No, they didn't say that. Groups called prides? Ooh, that sounds like what we just read. So I'm going to get my green color pencil and I'm going to put a check mark right here. Do they live in zoos? Now, see, this is why we have to go back and get our proof because they're trying to trick you. Obviously, these lions are living in the zoo. But this is not particularly what the question is asking you. This is what do lions live in when they're out in the wild, and what is that called? Emma tells us what it's called. She says it's called a group called prides, right? So that's why you have to go back and get that proof because they're trying to trick you. They're trying to trick you. All right, that's a trap. Don't be a mouse who runs into the trap. All right. So you have to, that's why it's so important to go back into the story and find that proof. Okie dokie. All right. So, I mean, like, yeah, but no. Zoos, no. We're not going to go there. Caves, no. All right. So now I'm going to use my green color pencil and I'm going to come back and I'm going to circle my answer. They're groups called prides. Okie doke. All right, last question. Oh, my D is covered up, but it's okay. Why are lions called the kings of the jungle? Is it because they're the tallest animal, because they're strong or fierce, or because they're the fastest animals? So we're gonna go back to our story. Always gotta go back to that story. If you answer a question and you didn't go back to the story, think about that again. All right. So we know that lions, they talked about lions in paragraph 4. So that's where I'm going right back to paragraph 4, and my paragraphs are labeled. So that makes it easy for me to go back to my paragraph. Okay. So after they visited the lions were napping under a shady tree, but when they woke up, they roared loudly. Emma said lions are called the kings of the jungle. Oh, this is what we need. Let's highlight of the jungle because they are strong and fierce. Ooh, I remember reading that answer. So let's go back to the question. All right. Now, let's take out our red and green colored pencils, and here we go. Why are lions called the king of the jungles? Because they are the tallest animals? No, that's not what she said. Because they are strong and fierce? Ooh, that sounds right. I'm gonna put a check there. Okie dokie. Ooh, sorry, y'all. They won't let me put the check there. I'm gonna put it right there. Okay. So we're gonna put our check right here. And then they said because they are the fastest animals. Nope. And whatever your D says, go ahead and cross that D out because we found our right answer. Okie dokie. So I'm gonna use my green colored pencil and I am going to circle my B. There was a lot of B's on here. I guess the thing favorite letter was B. All right. The so here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna do 7 through 10 on your own. Okie dokie. Your parent will check it to make sure that you went back and you found that proof. A good detective has proof. So find the proof. Okie dokie. The next thing too that I want to recommend that you do over the summer is get a chapter book, a really fun book that you would love to read. And I recommend that you read it. And as you're reading it to your parent, I think after like do a chapter each night and like every 5 pages of that chapter or every 2 or 3 pages, make sure you are asking questions just as a way to make sure that your student is understanding exactly what they are reading. This will be just a very good activity to do at night before bed as well to help increase those comprehension skills. Okie dokie. All right. Well, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope that you have fun doing your reading comprehension and thank you again for watching. Bye.